Is this China's second fatal mistake in 100 years? Well, shocking new insights might tell you it is. Now, there's been really big news all around the world as China's caused this massive disruption to the Bitcoin network by kicking all the miners of the network out of the country. And while many are speculating what happened, and more importantly, why would China do this? I believe that the answers to this question are laid out for us in history, which shows us what and why China is doing what they're doing. More importantly, how this works out for them. And in this video, I'm going to break down what happened, what this means for the Bitcoin network, and of course the rest of the world. What history shows us of an almost exact move that China made almost 100 years ago, how that worked out for them then, and how we can use this information to protect ourselves and use it to our advantage so we don't end up on the wrong side of history. So stay tuned. All right, now real quick before we dig in, if you're new to the channel, my name is Mark Moss and I make these videos because I want to change the way you think about money. And I know these are really big subjects and I try to take these deep subjects with historical elements and make them very easy to understand so you can have actionable information you need to increase your freedom, increase your options in life for yourself, for your family, and those that you love. If you like these topics and want to help me get them to more people, just take one quick second, click on that like button so the algorithm sends it out to more people. And of course, if you're not already subscribed, hit that subscribe button and the bell notification so you know when I put new videos out. All right, let's dive into today's topic. All right, so today I have a historical lesson for you that I think is going to show you a whole new perspective on what's going on, things that most people don't miss. Now, of course, the saying is with history that those don't know it are bound to repeat it, which is why I love to pull those parallels of history to show us where we are, how we got here, but more importantly, where we're going. Now, this might seem like an easy topic that you know and you've already read, but I swear you haven't seen this perspective. So of course, the first thing, of course, setting the stage here is China. China, right? China has kicked Bitcoin mining out of their country. Now, this is a good thing in my opinion, so let me explain why. So first off, one of the biggest objections that people have about Bitcoin is that Bitcoin controls the network, right? They have all the mining. So there's other objections, but that was one of the biggest ones, that China could take over the network, all of it's coming from China, etc. All right? And we saw that play out in real life. Now, we also saw that this is potentially the biggest attack in Bitcoin history. So the thing that people would say why China controls the network is because the majority of mining was done in China. So if somebody wanted to attack the network, they would control the miners, shut them down, take control of them, or whatever, because as I said, it's all being done in China. So we can see this. There's been news headlines for years. China's control of Bitcoin mining terrifies investors because they could potentially take it over. Now, I've often said that that's not really an issue. However, a lot of people think that it is. And so we've seen that over and over and over. There's been no shortage of news headlines and FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt, coming from all over. Bitcoin won't win world adoption because China controls it. This is per the Ripple, of course. So China controls it, as they say. It's really controlled by China. There's 4 miners in China that control over 50% of the network. All right, so that's what's been going on. That's what they're saying. However, as I said, there's been plenty of arguments that do they really? Does China actually really control Bitcoin? Do they really? Now, if you know a little bit more, you know that it wasn't really as bad as it was, but that's not a question anymore. We know what's happening now because, of course, China has kicked all the mining out of China. We're going to get into why they did this and what this means for us. But the things that we do know is that 53% of the security of Bitcoin was wiped out. So here's how it works. So Bitcoin is the most secure computer network in the history of the world. We know that as a matter of fact. There's lots of things we don't know about Bitcoin because the future isn't told yet, but we do know that it is the most secure computer network in the history of the world. And this is at a time where every computer network is being hacked. The famous Experian was hacked more. U.S. citizens' information was leaked online than any time in history. The NSA was hacked. When the NSA was hacked, they stole the NSA's hacking software, which is what enables all these ransomware attacks that you hear all the time. Now, these are centralized databases like the NSA who have massive security there, and the Bitcoin network is open. It's open. There's no security. There's no IT team. There's nobody protecting it. As a matter of fact, it's open source. Anybody can see the code. There's hundreds of billions up to $1 trillion of value sitting there, and it's never been hacked. And the reason why it's never been hacked is because of the mining. The mining uses proof of work, so they have to expend energy in order to process transactions on the network, which secure it. So the more that the price goes up, the more people jump in to mine, and the more miners there are, the more secure the computer network is. But half of it, 53% of it, just got wiped out, and that's because that's how much was in China. Remember the first slide, they said that China controlled it because they had over 50% of the network, and as we see, that is exactly what happened. So there was about 3 Chinese provinces, I'm not going to try to pronounce them, Xinjiang, Sichuan, and Inner Mongolia had about 53%, and we can see that this is really nothing new for China, so it shouldn't really surprise anybody. We can see China's banned Bitcoin 13 times just since 2012. So China is continually to ban it. Now, they've also banned Google, they've also banned Facebook, they've also banned Amazon, and those have done very, very well. So it's not like we need China, not like China's the make or break, and as I said, they've killed it, they've banned it 13 times, and yet Bitcoin still continues to grow. However, we can see, like I said, this is the biggest test that we've ever had. We can see just this region, Sichuan, if I'm saying that right, controlled about 54% of the global mining share. So to shut that down was a massive blow. However, the worst is sort of behind us. And the reason why is because Bitcoin is a decentralized network. Nobody controls it, nobody has power over it. So China had a majority of the mining power, which gave some people the idea that it was controlled there. And as we can see, this is the amount of ranking of hash power, how much mining was being done. And so China was by far and away the largest, United States is second, Russia, Kazakhstan, etc. So now with this out, all of this gets distributed down and becomes much more decentralized. All right. Now we can also see that as this mining was shut down, it's caused massive disruptions. So what we have down here is this is the hash ribbons. So this shows the power, the amount of mining power that's on the network, the hash, and we can see that the price has been coming down along with the hash power. So right here, on this line where the price really started to take a dip, this is where Xinjiang first had the power blackout. So this is when China first started saying we're going to shut everything down. We can see right here, Inner Mongolia enforces the ban. We can see right here, they enforce the ban. We can see here finally Sichuan enforces the ban. And so at this point, the price is already down. The damage is done at this point, and we have seen the worst of it, at least in my opinion and many other people's opinion. Now, what's happened is, like I said, there's been this great migration. All right, so basically all those miners, it's not like China seized them. They didn't come in and take control of them. They just said you can't mine here anymore. So of course, what do entrepreneurs and business owners do? They're just gonna move to the next place. And so they've been migrating to all other places. And we've seen this has been happening in mass. So we can see here, Go West Bitcoin, unpacking the great hash rate migration. So it's all moving west into areas that are more open, more free, that will allow them to do that. Now, we're seeing problems in the network. Part of the reason why we've seen the price sell off is because, one, the miners have lost about 2 to 4 weeks at least, if not more, of revenue. So of course, like any business, if you shut down, you're not making money. They're used to making a certain amount of money per day, week, month, and so they have their expenses planned out, things like that. They have to pay their debt service, things like that. And so you go for 4 weeks without making money, and what are you gonna do? Well, you have to start dumping your savings, and so they have Bitcoin, they're denominated in Bitcoin, of course, they're mining Bitcoin, and so they have to start dumping the Bitcoin on the market to pay for the move, to pay for their expenses while they're not producing income and so forth. And so that puts massive downward pressure on the price because we have supply and demand. So we have more supply hitting the markets. The miners are forced to sell in order to go for a month without pay and move from China to United States, Kazakhstan, etc., which of course has smashed the price down, which I just showed you. All right. However, it's a good thing in the long run because, as I said, it's decentralizing the network even more. The existing miners that are still on the network are making more money. And so this is where Bitcoin's game theory comes into play. And so as a miner, I'm running a business. I have to buy expensive equipment. I have to hook it to the network. And in exchange, I earn rewards. So my biggest expense is going to be electricity. So I'm going to go where electricity is the cheapest. So here's where game theory picks in. So I could go to China because I could get power for cheaper there. However, politically, it's unstable. Or I could go to the United States where it's a little bit more expensive for the power, but it's politically more stable. And so I could bet on China because it has less power, and maybe for a year or two, I've made a lot more money because I've paid a lot less electricity. However, now, being kicked out of the country, all that money I potentially made more of is all lost based off of being shut down, having to move, etc. And so now these miners are now starting to look at geopolitical situations to figure out where they want to move that. But while they're shut down off the network, all the other existing miners that are still there are making more money. So I chose to go into the United States, for example, even though I'm paying a little bit more power, but it's better a political stable environment. I'm making less money than my counterparts in China. However, now they're shut down, I'm making a lot more money, and it starts to balance out. And it's really a thing of beauty the way that this network works. And so imagine any large corporation, imagine Amazon having to pack up all their distribution centers across the United States and move them to another country. Like how much would that disrupt Amazon? They would need a year probably to plan that. With Bitcoin, they just shut it off like that. And the whole network has maintained its balance. Sure, it's a little bit slower to process, a little bit more expensive right now, but it's already starting to equalize. I'm not going to get deep into how the difficulty adjustments works. If you want to know more about that, leave me a comment down below. We'll go deeper into that. But I really want to get into the lesson here. So let's take a look at that. But I do want to show you that we can see here, we can see that China's kicking out more than half the Bitcoin miners. And where are they going? A lot of them are coming to good old Texas, to good old USA, where the power is cheap, of course. And we can see that we have new mining pools that have popped up. And one of them is a new US pool foundry. It's number 7 ranked right there. So we can see that this power is coming to the United States. Now, where I really want to get to is I want to go back to history. You know that I think that history tells us how we got here, what we're doing, and more importantly, where we're going. And so for that, we're going to jump back just a couple hundred years, and I'm going to give you a little story that's going to give you some perspective as to what is going on. All right, so the first fatal mistake that China made. Now, China has a long, long history. As a matter of fact, it has probably the longest history of any country in the world. It's been many dynasties. It's been a world player, superpower for most of history. All right, but they made a massive mistake, a fatal mistake, in my opinion. And so what that is that hundreds of years ago, China, well, the whole world was on different types of money. All right, and China was on the silver standard. All right, and we can see some stories about here, like how the silver standard actually wrecked China's economy. So let me give you a little bit of story of how that happened so you can understand the dilemma for silver standard economics, the case of China. Some really good reading if you like history as much as I do. But we can see that in the 14th century here, it was called white gold. Silver was called white gold. It had replaced paper money. So in the 14th century, they replaced paper money and they went to white gold or silver. All right. America, as the New World opened up, economic expansion was dependent on sustained supplies of silver. So they were running on a silver standard from the 1400s, but as the world was opening up, they needed more and more silver, of course, so their money could grow. You've probably heard about the Opium Wars. Well, the Opium Wars could have been called the Silver Wars instead. And so it was about opening up free trade. It was about opening up the amount of silver that they had. And they induced the end of the Ming Dynasty in 1644. All right, so this is what started to cause the end of that. Let me show you this next piece here. So that was going on for a couple of hundred years, but here's where the problem happened. So that was in the 14th century, the 16th century, but then the whole world started moving to the gold standard. Gold became better money, gold became more recognized around the world, and in the early 1900s, the whole world was moving to a gold standard, all right? In 1933, in November that year, the Chinese government basically threw in the towel. So the whole world was moving to a gold standard, while China said, we're going to stick to a silver standard. The problem is, because of that, they started losing power on the world stage. As everybody went to the gold standard and even more the fiat money standard, the paper standard, the silver standard lost, and they started having a devaluation, and they lost their power on the world stage. And finally, they had to throw in the towel, and they had to put their country on a paper currency standard instead. The problem is that they held out. When the whole world was switching, China thought they knew better. China thought they had the power because of their history and their strength that they could win. No different than we've seen technologies compete in the past, like VCR and beta, right? VHS and beta, for example. But China thought they could win, they had the power, and they lost. And they lost big. Not only did they lose, but they lost really big. And so we can see now that they've spent about the last 100 years trying to catch back up. They lost their position in the world. They've been trying to get back ever since they lost to gold and fiat. And so what does that mean? What have they actually been doing trying to get back? Well, what we've seen over the last decade, well, one, it took them a long time to recover. They went into communism. They had to kind of open up a little bit and bring a little bit of capitalism, some free ports, etc., to try to get their country to compete even better. And since then, since they've been able to compete a little bit, they've been buying more and more gold as the trade war drags on. So this is dated in 2019, so they've been acquiring gold for a long time, about 100 years too late. They should have switched to gold when they had the chance. I guess better late than never. But what we've seen is that China has just continued to hoard more and more gold. And to what? To maybe try to challenge the US dollar. This was written in 2014, so they've been doing this for a long time. But let's take a look at how much gold do they really have. All right, this is, China doesn't really report their numbers real accurately, so it's hard to say exactly how much gold they have, but there are some ways we can do that. So we do know that, well, they tell us the US gold holdings officially show the US holds about 8,000 tons. All right, so that's supposedly what's in Fort Knox. Now, some people believe that gold's there, some people believe it's not. Leave me a comment and let me know what you think about that. All right, but it's in Fort Knox, but it hasn't been audited. So supposedly the US has the most gold in the world, 8,000 tons. China officially declares about 2,000 tons. All right, so not quite 8,000. However, here's where the math starts coming in. The real number is much larger than that. China is the world's largest gold producer. They've been the world's largest gold producer since 2007. And this past decade, it's produced about 15% of all the gold mined in the world. Last year, it produced 380 tons, 20% more than the world's second largest producer, which is Australia, which is a lot. So let's start adding up some of this math. We can see that since 2000, China has mined roughly 6,500 tons. That's how much they've added since 2000. Now remember, the US has 8,300. And then the other thing is that China keeps the gold it mines. So all the gold that's been mined in China, this is a key piece. So China not only is importing gold, but they've allowed people to come and mine as much gold as they want, with one caveat. All the gold that's mined inside China has to stay in China. So you can come mine all you want, however, you can't ship it out of the country. We'll buy it all from you. So China keeps the gold it mines. Exporting of domestic mine production is not allowed. All right. Chinese mining companies have also been buying assets abroad. So in addition to mining as much as they can, about 6,500 tons, they're also importing as much as they can. The world's biggest producer, China, is the world's biggest importer. So not only do they produce the most amount of gold in the world, they also import the most amount of gold in the world as well. Over 6,000 tons has entered the country since 2000. They've also mined 6,500, so that's over 12,000 tons. Cumulative gold production since 2000, and you get a figure of about 13,200 tons. Remember, the United States has about 8,300, which hasn't been audited. Most of the gold that enters China goes through the Shanghai Gold Exchange, SGE. So this is where we have to start kind of getting into some detective math. Since 2008, roughly 20,000 since 2008, 20,000 tons have been withdrawn from SGE. So where do you think those went? They went to China. So now we're like 13,000 plus 20,000. I mean, are we at 30,000 tons versus the US's 8,000 tons? You see, they're still trying to play catch up. They lost trying to win on the silver standard. They lost to gold, and they're still trying to catch up right now. But what are they going to do with all that gold? What are they hoping? Well, they want to win with gold and their new plan, central bank digital currencies. Of course, a CBDC, as we call them, all right? And so I believe that China is placing their bets, trying to catch up on the gold, and now they're trying to be one step ahead. They see the dollar is losing its reserve status. It has no gold backing. They want to bring their currency to the forefront of the world, and they're doing that with the central bank digital currency. Of course, I've done many videos on this channel talking about how China is launching their own central bank digital currency. They've been in the forefront of this. Now, this has been going on for a long time. This is dated back here in 2016 that China's laying the foundation for the next world gold standard system, right? More than 5 years old. So they've been stockpiling gold. Everybody knows this. A lot of people are speculating they're trying to lay the foundations for the next gold system. However, at the same time, they're also on track to unveil the digital currency that could challenge the dollar's dominance. So gold-backed currency and a central bank digital currency at the same time. And so they've, again, I've been talking about this quite a bit. They've rolled this out. Their plan is to have a full-scale release by next year when they host the Olympics, kind of like an evil villain, attract all the people to your country and then make them all use a central bank digital currency. And so then when you add those two together like peanut butter and jelly, it leads to the question that will China launch a gold-backed cryptocurrency? Is that what they're trying to do? Many think that might be the case. We can see, is China paving the way for a gold-backed yuan? Maybe. So is it going to be a central bank digital currency that's going to be gold-backed? It certainly looks like that is about to be the case. However, it looks to me like China is still trying to catch up and not repeat the mistakes they made from 100 years ago. They held on to silver. When the whole world went to gold, they lost. And now, 100 years later, they've been the largest gold accumulator in the world. Ha, China wins, right? Maybe not so fast. This is where they're repeating the same fatal mistake for a second time. So we know that a new asset class has emerged. As a matter of fact, Bitcoin has been the best performing asset for the last 11 years. We can see right here, Yahoo Finance becomes the best performing asset of the decade, returning 10 times more than the NASDAQ 100. Now, some of you might be doubting that and saying, well, it's not really an asset. Well, per Goldman Sachs, and if you know who Goldman Sachs is, then I don't need to tell you who they are. They are the who's who in the world global financial stage. So they say Bitcoin is officially a new asset class. It's time to take Bitcoin way more seriously as an investable asset. Bitcoin is now considered an investable asset. So not only Goldman Sachs is telling you it's an investable asset, and Yahoo Finance tells you it's the best performing asset, 10 times that of the NASDAQ. And now the NASDAQ is where the tech stocks are. So the most explosive stocks in the world have been the tech stocks over the last decade, and it's done 10 times that. 10 times that. We can see right here the compounded annual growth rate, different periods. So that's over the last 10, 11 years. But what about each year? Well, over the last 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, 8 years, 9 years, 10 years, it's beat gold and S&P every single year. So combined, cumulatively, and each year individually. We can also see the annual growth rate. Here's gold, here's S&P 500, NASDAQ. So again, NASDAQ did the best because of the tech stocks, but look where it's at right here. Of course, Tesla, everybody loves Tesla. It's only right here. Amazon's done amazing, and it's only right there. So we can see how good that's done. Now, I know, let me show you something. I know everybody's saying, but Mark, it just crashed. It just crashed. It's not a good store of value. Look how much it's crashed. Yes, you're right. It has crashed. It's gone from here all the way down to here where it was, just a few months ago. As a matter of fact, it's still up almost 300% in 12 months. So it's up 300% over 12 months even today, although yes, it is down a little bit. So if you're looking at assets in that small of a period, then maybe you see that. However, per all the stuff that I showed you, it's been the best performing asset every year, over 10 years, 11 years, etc. You don't look at assets in months. Nobody should be doing that. If you're zoomed in that far, then you're gonna get it wrong. You need to be zooming out. So it's been the best performing asset in the world. And on top of that, this is where China is really gonna start losing out, is that now we're starting to see a whole new standard emerge. There's a whole new asset. Of course, we've already made the case, and now we've seen people like me use it as a reserve asset. We've seen corporations like MicroStrategy use it as a reserve asset, and now we're starting to see countries use it. So the world is switching over to a new standard. El Salvador makes history, world's first country to make Bitcoin legal tender. Now, it's not just El Salvador, it's how it starts. It starts gradually, then it goes suddenly. We can see here that now that El Salvador's done it, now other countries are starting to adopt Bitcoin. We can see El Salvador, Paraguay, Panama, Brazil, Mexico, and more. Lots of countries are coming on board. So we're seeing the same thing set up again in history, right? There was a standard. China was on silver. The whole world started moving to gold. China lost out. China's been trying to get back to gold for 100 years. And just as they're getting the power play, the position on gold, the whole world is moving to another standard. All right. Now, they had the advantage, right? This is their second fatal mistake, I believe, in 100 years, because they had the majority of the mining. If the whole world is starting to switch to Bitcoin, they're just finally catching up on gold 100 years later. Way too late. Now the world's moving to Bitcoin, and they had the majority. They had all the mining. Over half of the network was there. They could have treated it like gold. So remember, I set up like gold. Not only does China import gold, but they allow anybody to come mine gold in their country. The thing is you can't ship the gold out of the country. You have to sell the gold to China. So why didn't they just do the same thing? They could have said, sure, come mine Bitcoin in China like they had, but you have to sell the Bitcoin to China. You can't send it out of the country. They could have easily done that. But instead, what'd they do? They pushed the miners out of the country. When they could have controlled it, they could have been the world leader, they decided to get rid of it. And the reason why is because they're trying to bet on a different standard, on a gold / fiat / central bank digital currency fiat standard. So they bet on silver. When the whole world moved to gold, they lost. Today, they're betting on gold, which was the choice 100 years ago. They're betting on gold and fiat when the whole world is switching to somebody else. I believe that this is going to be a worse mistake than them trying to hang on to silver. Now, again, as I started out by saying, if you don't know history, then you're bound to repeat it. And it just seems like China sure doesn't know their history, because this is the second fatal mistake they've made. Now, this is a big benefit to the world. All right, this is a huge benefit to the network. So there was too much concentration of the network in China, which is why people said that they could attack it. And now that's gone. Now it's been more decentralized. It's proof that a country doesn't control it. This is the best example. We have a real world case scenario where half of the network has been destroyed, but yet the Bitcoin network still works just perfectly. It's going to provide more decentralization. As I kind of showed you this chart earlier, too much of it is being done in China, and now this is all going to be broken up and split all through there. It also proves how stable and how resilient the network is. You can kill over half of it overnight, and yet the network doesn't miss a beat. Now, sure, it's a little bit slower, a little bit more expensive to transact temporarily until this settles down, but it proves the stability. So what I like to say is use this information, use this historical analysis to your advantage. I sure am. I don't want to be on the wrong side of history. And if you don't know history, you're going to bound to be on the wrong side of it, just like China. Don't hang on to gold 100 years ago. Don't hang on to fiat today. I'm putting my money on Bitcoin. Let me know what you think. Leave me a comment down below. Do you think that history repeats and China has just made their second fatal mistake? Or do you think that they're smarter than everybody else and they were right to kick Bitcoin out of the country? I'd like to know. Leave me a comment down below. Of course, as always, give me a thumbs up on this video if you like it. If you don't like the video, give me a thumbs down. That's okay. But tell me why. Leave me a comment and let me know why. And that's what I got for you today, all right? To your success. I'm out.